And now I have the honor and the privilege of inviting, welcoming, and reintroducing our guest speaker for this evening, Rabbi Bob Loewy, known to many of us as our rabbi because he served our congregation for a number of years. Most recently, Bob's role has been as the Chief Rabbi of Metairie, Louisiana, currently the Rabbi Emeritus at Congregation Gates of Prayer in Metairie. He's served that community since 1984, and his role as their rabbi, his role as our rabbi, has been augmented by numerous positions of leadership in our Reform movement, throughout Jewish life in North America, education, Israel advocacy, every imaginable way that a rabbi can make himself of service to the community and to his people. We are deeply grateful to have him as one of our rabbis as well, and it is my great pleasure to welcome him to this virtual Bima now to share some words this evening. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Loewy.
Thank you, Rabbi Hayon. What an honor it is to speak this evening to mark Rabbi Roy Walter's 50 years in the Rabbinate. But I have to ask, why me? From among all of the assistant rabbis and associate rabbis over the years, Howard Leibson, Stephen Silver, Rennie Altman, Judy Zabarenko Abrams, Zichrona Livracha, Matt Michaels, Peter Shackman, Jeff Klopper, Pam Silk, Robert Haas, and Joe Prass. Why do I have this opportunity to honor my friend, my mentor, my rabbi? Very simple. I was his first. For that matter, I served as a rabbinical bridge, arriving in July 1977 for Rabbi Kahn's last year, and then in 1978, Rabbi Walter's first year as senior rabbi. Roy and I have enjoyed a special relationship for 45 of his 50 years in the Rabbinate. It would not be high holidays for us if we didn't exchange a call, or Pesach if I didn't remind him that it was time to sing that classical oldie but goodie for the Passover morning service, "Behold, it is the springtide of the year." Like many of you, but perhaps uniquely from among all the rabbinical colleagues, Roy has been with me and my family for the full spectrum of life cycle events, from birth to death, and all milestones in between. That includes 37 years ago this day when he officiated at Lynn and my wedding. His wit and wisdom lifted the joyous moments, while his compassion and care touched us with comfort during challenging times. It was in 2005, after having been away from Congregation Emanu for almost 20 years, my New Orleans congregants, my family, and I found refuge here following Hurricane Katrina. While participating in the alternative Rosh Hashanah morning service that year as a congregant, a new role for me at that point, I remarked to Lynn, and then others mentioned to me, how similarly the both of us constructed and led worship. Well, that was no coincidence. Just as Roy Walter was your rabbi for 50 years, so too he was role model and rabbi to me and all of the colleagues previously mentioned. In preparing my remarks for tonight, I was able to connect with most of the others for their input as to what lessons they learned from him, along with any particularly memorable moments shared. There was so much in common. For most of us, this was our first position, setting the tone for years in the Rabbinate. As Rabbi Pam Silk wrote, quote, "After I completed Hebrew Union College, I attended the Roy Walter School of Rabbinics," end quote. In fact, during a sabbatical, he actually did teach a seminar to rabbinic students at the College Institute. Included in our curriculum was the importance to be highly organized and pay attention to detail, whether during pastoral hospital visits, preparing a class, or working with a committee. Of course, an Emmanuel rabbi has to sing and dance for Purim, or numerous other celebratory productions. For Roy Walter, the dancing rabbi, choreography was not just on the stage, but also the worship experience. Rabbi Matt Michaels reflected, quote, Roy always insisted on a pulpit presence that reflected thought and smoothness without seeming forced and rigid, end quote. This applied to all worship, which is at the heart of synagogue life. Roy was ahead of his time and a thought leader in the formation of creative liturgy, such as Confession for Our Times and children's services. It's good to be good, but it's better to be better. Nationally, he and his good friend Rabbi Barton Lee co-authored a book of children's prayer. Roy was an enabler in the most positive of ways for so many of us. Rabbi Joe Prass writes, one of the traits that I admire most about Roy is that he let his staff have autonomy, and we were able to grow and shine. He demonstrated what it meant to be in charge and confident while having great pride in accomplishments of his rabbis. With his Tulane University degree in English, Roy held a great appreciation and respect for the sermon, both its artistry and the power of its potential message. I vividly recall some of those sermons, one where he interwove Torah and the Velveteen Rabbit, another looking into the multiple aspects of identity with the layers of an onion as metaphor, and one high holy day when he was literally wagging his finger at the congregation for engaging in Lashon Hara, gossip. You could have heard a pin drop. He nurtured us, the baby rabbis, as we were affectionately called, with our writing as well. Newly ordained Rabbi Howard Leibson met with Roy to proudly share his Rosh Hashanah sermon in advance. Howard reports, he told me that he liked my writing style and that my sermon was a good essay, written for the eyes, not the ears. A sermon, however, needed to be written, to be heard, not read. Roy helped him do just that, imparting a perspective that lasted his career. After delivering a controversial sermon, Rabbi Peter Shackman came to him to apologize for any flack he was receiving, to which Roy responded, Rabbi, don't you ever apologize for expressing what you think from our pulpit. There was nothing wrong with your sermon. You backed up everything you said, and it's part of my job to explain that to people who can't deal with ideas they don't like. Rabbi Jeff Klopper learned what it meant to put your whole heart in this incredible work that a rabbi does. No one was more dedicated or worked longer and harder than Roy Walter. I might note that most of the time, whether in public or private, he addressed us all as rabbi, but pronounced rabbi, demonstrating respect for us and our calling. Rabbi Rennie Altman added, what I remember most about Roy is his absolute devotion to his congregation, both to the congregation as an entity unto itself and to the people who comprised its membership, and his love of the rabbinate. At the same time, he was fully devoted to his family, a very fine balancing act that is one of the greatest challenges of this calling, she wrote. We, of course, on this night, think of and honor Linda, who partnered with Roy in devotion to him, to Judaism, the Jewish community, and this congregation for his 50 years. I always noted a certain deferential inflection to Roy's voice when he said her name, and it was similar to the lovingly distinct way he would pronounce Congregation Emanu. In his mind, the name alone stood for a specific culture and set of values, with a foundation from Rabbi Kahn, who he deeply respected and honored, then further enriched with all that he helped to bring and implant and nurture. He innovated a depth and breadth of programming, bringing unique vision, as noted by Robert Haas. Roy's was a vision of excellence in all areas of synagogue life, not just education and worship, but every aspect, even how to optimally fill the physical space of 1500 Sunset Boulevard, always in partnership and friendship with lay leaders. With his guidance and direction, Congregation Emanu has been at the forefront in community social justice projects, at the vanguard of opening doors to the LGBTQ community, and understanding of its role to support local and national Jewish communal institutions. He modeled the ability to enable and encourage talented congregants. During his tenure, and with his urging, the congregation became a pipeline for lay and professional leadership to the national and international reform movement. Since my retirement in 2018, and having a daughter now living in Houston, I've had the opportunity to attend worship and follow the recent positive trajectory of the congregation. While much is new, as it should be, the foundation of Roy Walter's Rabbinate enables you to go from strength to strength. Friends, the rabbis teach, Aseh lecha rav, aseh lecha chaver. Acquire for yourself a rabbi, and you gain a friend. For 50 years, Rabbi Roy Walter has been Rav to thousands, enriching us all in so many ways. And like many of you, I am so pleased and proud to call him Chaver, friend. On this Shabbat, when we read the priestly blessing in our Torah portion, we know that we have been blessed by Rabbi Roy Walter as we look forward to his continued rabbinate and friendship. May he be blessed, to which we say together, Amen.
There, I just unmuted myself. I think I did this right. First of all, thank you, Bob, Rabbi Loewy. I hope I deserve half of what you said. That would be amazing, and I certainly, as you well know, have tried to live up to the title that the Hebrew Union College bestowed on me 50 years ago. Coincidentally, we had originally talked about having, before the COVID virus locked everything down, Rabbi Hayon and I had talked about doing this a couple of weeks ago, and it got initially perhaps canceled and then, thank God, postponed. And coincidentally, this is the actual date. This weekend is the actual date of my ordination 50 years ago in 1970. The cicadas were out that year. I understand they're going to be out back again this year. So maybe they came to celebrate with me. I made a couple of notes that I want to refer to so that I don't forget anything that I want to say. First of all, to Bob, to Rabbi Loewy, my deepest and sincerest thanks, for what you said tonight. I want to repeat, if I have been half of what you said, I would be pleased to know that my 50 years have been that successful. And for his friendship through these years. Bob geographically moved away to New Orleans, but his heart, a part of his heart, I think, has always remained right here at Emanu. I want to thank Rabbi Hayon, of course, for this wonderful celebration. One of the things that I admire about him and the rest of the staff is that in certainly very trying conditions of what's going on, they have created a way for Emmanuel to be Emmanuel, albeit online instead of at 1500 Sunset Boulevard. The temple has been open a few days a week in the morning for staff, and I've needed to go in to do a few things. My office is back out of the way, so I don't have to interact with anybody. And I must tell you, it's been a very important part of the experience during the virus that I have been able to go in and take a walk through the sanctuary, sometimes stop and say a prayer. I hope you won't, I hope you'll spare me a moment to share with you what I know all of you know. And that is that Linda took this journey with me. I know that the term Rebbitzin is not a popular term. For some reason, it's taken on a negative connotation, but in Linda's case, it really didn't. She shared my work with me. She understood when I wasn't home. But more important than that is that she really felt a part of my work, and people loved her for who she was. As I said in her obituary, she succeeded in her role, but she never relished it, and she never sought any of the honors, many of which came her way. And I can promise every one of you here that whatever I have achieved and accomplished in these 50 years, Linda is 100% part of every bit of it, whether she was present in the moment or not. The virus has actually, in some ways, strengthened my belief in what the congregation stands for. The number of letters and cards and donations that I have received since Linda's death is just one more example of how important Emmanuel is as a community. We are social beings, and Emmanuel is and has always been an important part of my life, and so many, literally thousands of people's lives. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve this congregation because everything about it stands for excellence. Beginning with the founders who founded this congregation on their own while the man they wanted to be their rabbi was overseas, to Rabbi Khan, who set standards that I certainly strove to try and accomplish alongside the leaders of the congregation in my generation. It was an amazing partnership, serving with men and women, whether it was on a committee or writing a service or on an executive committee. Congregation was founded to be relevant and vital. And it was that completely throughout my whole life. And I certainly tried everything I could do to make it continue to be so. And I'm so proud of what Rabbi Hayon and the rest of the staff are doing to continue that. I do want to take this opportunity to, trying to think of the word I want, to put to rest a myth. I did not arrive in Houston on a motorcycle. None of you have ever seen me ride a motorcycle. And I would like you to know that when my son Aaron called home one day to ask his mother if she knew an urban myth he could share for a paper, that's the one that she told him, and he did. I want to conclude by thanking God. I can think back to the path that led me to being a rabbi. There are some specific things that happened in my life that caused that to happen. There are some specific things in my life that led me to Congregation Emanu and to become its senior rabbi and to have the opportunity to spend my life here. It is such a blessing that God has given me. And I have had the honor to share that blessing for 50 years. From my heart to yours, every one of you, thank you for opening up your lives and your hearts to me. You have given me much more than I have ever given you. Shabbat Shalom.
There's lots of hugs going on in the Zoom room, but lots of hugs coming from all over for you, Rabbi Walter, and your tremendous graciousness, and something that you have modeled for all of us, those who have had the honor of working with you as part of your clergy team and part of your staff over years, but also for the congregation, is about that graciousness, is about expressing thanks, and how we know that the reason that you do it so well is because we know that it comes from your heart, and how thankful we are to have you in our lives and to celebrate this simcha with you.